Welcome back to CBS Mornings. Week 4 in the NFL is bringing brand new concerns about the league's handling of player health after Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tsgovailoa was sidelined with a concussion on Thursday. And yesterday, another player was allowed back into the game after a big hit, only to later leave with a concussion. But head injuries aren't the only concern. Superstar defensive lineman J.J. Watt played Sunday despite facing a potentially life-threatening health scare. All of this adding weight to concerns that the NFL needs to pay closer attention to the safety of its players. Tampa Bay Buccaneers tight end Cameron Brate briefly stayed on the ground after a hit during Sunday's game.
It is shaken up.
He was checked on the sideline, cleared, and returned to the field on the same drive. But at halftime, he was ruled out with a concussion after having played the rest of the first half. It comes as the league and the NFLPA are investigating the head injury sustained by Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tsgovailoa.
That's not a good sign when you see him walk.
On Saturday, the NFL Players Association fired the independent neurologist who assessed the hit Tsgovailoa took last Sunday. The doctor, who hasn't been named, cleared Tsgovailoa to return in the second half of last Sunday's game against the Buffalo Bills after the hit to his head. Independent doctors are placed at all NFL games to put players through a series of tests when exhibiting signs of a concussion. The player cannot go back onto the field unless the independent doctor and the team doctor give him clearance.
To a rolling left.
Tsgovailoa then suffered a serious head injury after another big hit 4 days later, leading to questions about whether he should have played at all.
The NFL has had a huge health problem on its hands for a number of years.
Attorney Brad Sohn represents several current and former players and says they need more access to better independent medical information.
You need to make sure that the medical advice that's being given is sound and unconflicted, and that there's clear accountability in these protocols.
There were no protocols stopping J.J. Watt from stepping back onto the field Sunday after he suffered a heart scare just 4 days earlier.
It's been a week, but happy to be here.
Last week, Watt experienced atrial fibrillation, an irregular and often rapid heart rhythm that can lead to blood clots in the heart. If not addressed, it can increase the risk of stroke and heart failure. Watt says he had his heart shocked back into rhythm on Thursday, which allowed him to play, something he wanted.
I was assured multiple times from multiple people that there's nothing else you could do. You go back and play like normal. So it could happen again the next day. It could happen never again.
Let's talk more about this with CBS News medical contributor, Dr. David Agus. Good morning, David. How are you doing?
I am doing good, Nate. How are you?
I'm good. So let's start with J.J. Watt. I mean, he's one of the faces of the league. What exactly is atrial fibrillation and what are the risks?
So when your heart beats, it goes from the top, the atrium, down to the ventricle. What happens with atrial fibrillation is instead of beating regularly that top, it just beats so quickly that it can't fill. When it can't fill, that blood there, which is stagnant, can clot, and that's where the blood clots come from. And because it is pushing so quickly, sometimes the heart beats very, very rapidly, and it's very hard to tolerate, and fluid can build up in the lungs.
Okay, it's clear that I'm no doctor, but when you have an injury that you can see, like an ankle or a bruise or a broken rib where you feel it, that's different. But when I hear heart, I immediately think he should not be on the field. Why was he allowed to play just 4 days later?
Yeah, in his case, they shock the heart to try to get it back into a regular rhythm. And in most cases, it comes back again. And so normally we would follow the patient for several weeks afterwards with a monitor to make sure it's not coming back so they're not at risk for that blood clot. And certainly going into a game where you're pushing yourself so quickly, you're getting dehydrated, their volume changes, all of those things can bring it on again. I would not have put him back in the game. I mean, the way we do things now, the default is you can get back in unless. It should be the other way around, is you have to stay out unless you can show X, Y, or Z.
He's one of the good guys on and off the field. What causes this, this AFib? What causes it?
It's remarkably common. I mean, it's 5 million people in the United States now, and so it's very common. It happens. We can treat it by burning part of the heart where that rhythm happens, or putting people on blood thinner. But at the same time, it's not safe. Football players have one of the shortest life expectancies of any profession, and we have to change that.
Yeah, you're right about that. Now, J.J. Watt wanted to play. He said it himself. But speaking of that, I oftentimes say that you have to protect players from themselves. And this is autobiographical. There's times I went in the game when I shouldn't have. But you have guys that are getting concussions, being evaluated, and then placed back on the field. Do you believe that if a guy has a concussion or thought to have a concussion, that he should be allowed to play?
No, I think we are way underdiagnosing concussion. There is technology now that can quantitatively do it on the sidelines. We're not using it. We're doing subjective measures by doctors. And that's not right. And certainly we need to protect the brains of players. Their career is many years. It's not one game. And hopefully they have a post-career like you do, Nate. And we need to protect that. And so we need to really change and use all the technologies we have to enable that. And why aren't we taking the player out who hit somebody and caused a concussion also, to really push people to train to not hit somebody so they get a concussion? We have to push things or change things differently.